And remember, if at any point you have any questions at all, just drop those in the chat box and we'll get those answered for you at the end.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Camille. As she said, my name is Berkeley. I'm a rising junior at Harvard College, and we're just so excited to roll out this new version of TurboVote during an election year where we know your students are at peak political engagement on campus. So without further ado, let's get started. So this first screen should look very familiar to you. And we'll have co-branding options including custom colors and your school logo as University of Missouri has done here. So by adding fully customizable CSS codes here, you can play with the look and feel of your TurboVote site to match your university's branding if you'd like. And of course, you have your usual mizzou.turbovote.org or whatever your partner name would be. So we'll go ahead and get started. So first we'll start with the basics and get introduced. Instead of asking for the user's name twice in the process like the old system did, we ask and explain why we need your full name and nickname right at the beginning. The nickname is so TurboVote notifications are nice and personalized if applicable. So I'll go ahead and put my name here and we'll move on. So next we collect information for notifications, and we require either phone number or email. This gives the user an opportunity to customize their communication with TurboVote. Whichever medium you choose will be tied to your account and can then be used in the future for updating your information. Users can, of course, choose both email and phone.
Yeah, so one difference here is that the old system required users' email address and made phone number optional. But we now can communicate with users only by phone if they prefer, making our system even more accessible than before to people who might not have access or familiarity with email, which can often be the case for younger voters.
So now I need to enter my phone number here. Here we go. So now we're getting into the service selection portion, where students are indicating what they'd like to do through TurboVote. In the old system, this page addressed voter registration, vote by mail, and election reminders all at once. Now we simply ask, are you registered to vote? And then we tailor the remainder of the user's experience based on your answer. So if you click yes, you'll be able to update your registration as well as enable text and email notifications about upcoming elections.
Yeah, and one update in our 2.0 system that I think is important is that now everybody, including 17-year-olds, non-citizens, or people with a record that keeps them from being able to vote, will be able to sign up for election information anyway in the new system via the I Can't Vote button, and this way we aren't turning anyone away.
So for the purpose of today's demo, we'll click no or I'm not sure. So on the first address page students come to, they will input the address where they would like to register to vote. We've improved our instructions here, clarifying this address cannot be a P.O. box, but can be their permanent home address if they so choose. We'll also be able to display some custom instructions here for your on-campus students, including the ability to hyperlink out to a list of dorm addresses. So since we are using Mizzou's site, we'll go ahead and put a Missouri address. And there we go. Here we go. Okay, so after we collect address information, we can determine whether or not the user can use online voter registration. 31 states have active online voter registration tools, and we work with all of them. Since you've input your address, these instructions are state-specific, as it is for Missouri here. So if a state allows the user to register online, as Missouri does, we'll give them the option to do so. But of course, you still have the option to register by paper, so we'll kind of show you both workflows today.
And those of you who are familiar will notice here that the option to register online comes much earlier in the new system than it did in the old. And we're finding that this is making it more likely that students will successfully complete the registration process in states that have online voter registration. And it also keeps students from having to enter information twice.
Yeah, so for today, I'll click I'll register online. So this opens up Missouri's online voter registration system and an iframe, which in this case is integrated into the TurboVote page. For other states with online voter registration, this might open up in a different tab. And then right above the iframe, we'll ask you whether you completed online registration. So in case for some reason you can't complete the online system, for example, maybe you don't have the correct ID with you, you can click I prefer paper, and then you can still register, using the traditional paper method. So for the purpose of today's demo, we'll choose this option so we can kind of see what the paper instructions look like. So then this asks, are you a citizen? We updated the language here to be a little more inclusive of students who may not be able to vote due to citizenship, such as international or undocumented students. So I'll just say yes, I'm a citizen. My birthday. So now students are given the option to provide a mailing address. We changed this piece to be a bit more clear, having one button actually show the user's registration address, which they entered previously, and then another button reading somewhere else, which will then provide the user to enter a separate mailing address. So we'll go ahead and choose this one. So as the old system did, TurboVote will provide state-by-state custom instructions here, spelling out the implications of registering or not registering with a political party, and then how that might affect the student's ability to participate in an election.
And the language you see there under what's your party is state-specific, which is important because some primaries are open and some are closed. We want to make sure that there isn't any confusion around this so all our students are able to vote in the primaries they want to when they show up to the polls.
Awesome. So since Missouri does not require that we register with a party, I can just click None. And it looks like an election is coming up. So the new system now asks the user, how do you plan to cast your ballot? This is a more straightforward way of addressing in-person versus by-mail voting. For the purpose of today's demo, we'll choose vote by mail to see what the instructions for absentee voting look like. Again, these instructions are state-specific, and since Missouri requires an excuse to vote by mail, TurboVote generates a list of excuses Missouri accepts for absentee voting. So I'll go ahead and click none of these apply to me, so I'll just have to vote in person instead. So since we've used a demo address and don't want to get mail there, I'll choose I'll print my own. Since college students don't often have a stamp and envelope lying around, college partners may sponsor mailings. So then if a user selects I like getting mail, they'll receive a stamped and pre-addressed envelope that they just have to sign and put in a mailbox to complete the registration process. Otherwise, they can download and print the registration papers themselves, as we'll be doing today. So now we've reached the done page. So TurboVote is now generating a copy of my registration form, and then if absentee voting applied to me, then it would generate an absentee ballot request form. So you'll kind of see that we're even more clear in the language here about the user's next steps and what's still left to do to successfully complete the registration and or request a by-mail ballot.
In the 2.0 system, students can continue to receive mailings, and the directions here will indicate that their forms will come in the mail. Just like in the old system, we've also sent an email to the user with this information, and now in the new system, we also text copies of any forms for the user to download.
Yes, exactly. So that kind of wraps up the new and improved user flow of TurboVote. In building the new version of the site, we really prioritized improving the user-facing features, just making sure we created the best, easiest experience for voters. So with that, I will pass it off to Tegan, who will go through some best practices for implementation of TurboVote. So take it away, Tegan.
Thank you, Berkeley. Hi, everyone. My name is Tegan, and I'm a rising senior at Seton Hall. And the thing about TurboVote is that while it is this unique tool to help simplify the voter registration process for students, it really can't go out and physically grab these students and force them to register to vote or force them to vote. And the key to a successful TurboVote implementation really depends on an individual on the ground pushing it out. So like I said, I'm from Seton Hall University, and my campus became a partner in 2014. And so it was an off election year. It wasn't a presidential year where the media is bombarding us with all this information, but it was an election where every vote still mattered, obviously. So it was really on us to push out, that there's a congressional election, a Senate election, a local election still going on. And what we did was we used TurboVote not only to help register students, but to help them start thinking about, the upcoming election. So at TurboVote, we really divide implementation into two different bottlenecks, on the ground and digital. And so for on the ground, that really deals with tabling, different events, and orientation. So on my campus, for example, we had some extra funding in our student government budget. So we bought some wristbands that advertised, Seton Hall University wants you to register to vote. And we put our unique TurboVote URL on the side. So first, it gave us something to lure people into our table. So we were set up on the green with laptops open to TurboVote, smartphones ready to register people on the go. But then it gave them something to take away from it also. So if they were in a hurry on their way to class, they could grab a wristband, and when they were at a computer, they could open it up and look down and see that unique URL and kind of remind them to, go visit the site. Another thing we did was we made red, white, and blue cupcakes to pass out in our university center, once again to draw people in and then give them a takeaway from TurboVote. Another big key for on-the-ground implementation is orientation. When so many new students are coming in for the first time, students who have either recently moved or have a new address because they're coming to college for the first time, or obviously students who just turned 18 or will soon turn 18. They're already there, they're signing up for so many things, they're registering for classes. Why not register them to vote right then and there also? So overall, face-to-face interaction can be super valuable. It helps build a connection and personalize the voting experience. However, a digital bottleneck is a way that is, even though it's not as personal, you can kind of target even more people. And a successful thing we've seen with this is sending mass emails. Something to keep in mind for that is the person that you want sending it out depends on the message that they're sending. Whether you want a student leader on campus to send it and it's a more personal student-to-student connection, or you want a dean or a vice president of student affairs to send an email, kind of creating an authority figure to create a call to action, that can be super successful also. You want a specific subject line with an action-oriented subject. You want it to be short and brief. Insert links throughout the body with the TurboVote link to it. And another thing we've seen really being successful is a follow-up email, specifically matching with an upcoming deadline, whether it's a register to vote deadline or a specific state primary deadline. That way, reminding students, keeping it on the top of their radars and then giving them that extra push to go out there and register to vote. Another digital bottleneck are social media campaigns. So this is Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram. You can promote this through the university's already existing page, the student government page, different club, college Republicans, college Democrats, whatever works for you. You can, on Facebook, create a calendar invite to, create an event of registering to vote. This way, students see that their friends are doing it. They have an actual day set out to go to the link, sign up to register to vote, and it can gain traction just by other people sharing it. And the key for this is you want to keep the information fun, relevant, and relatable so that students actually want to share it and promote it on their own, and it's less for you guys to push out on your own. For Twitter, you want to keep it short, simple, and trendy. You can tag us at TurboVote, and our team can even share it to help, help you guys gain traction with your movements. And if content is something that you struggle with, brainstorming what should I put out there, what should I be putting on my sites, you can, capture the on-the-ground methods via picture or video and then promote it through your digital bottlenecks also. And another thing, just a side note, it's not really a social media thing, but it's computer-based, is putting a banner on your school's computers, whether it's a public computer in your library or if you have a Mac lab or something like that. You can ask your librarians and student workers to put the computer's home screen set as your unique TurboVote URL. So this really, it's the first thing students see when they log in because it's the home screen of the computer, and they're already on a computer. Why not go to the site and register to vote right there? And another step is where faculty administrators come in. So obviously you guys are on our webinar, you're taking the first initiative, and that's great. We really appreciate that, but there are simple things that you guys can do as well to help your students get registered to vote. Whether it's putting a link to TurboVote on your handout, on your syllabus handout, or on your online, Blackboard page, or it's incorporating TurboVote into a civic learning class. You can even make an announcement at the beginning of your lecture or write the TurboVote URL on your whiteboard for students to look at while you're lecturing. That's just little things to keep in mind that can help promote the tool. And a final thing that we've been seeing is IT integration, putting the link on a student portal. So my colleague Merritt is really going to go into detail about how that's worked for other campuses and how some of the hypotheticals I've been talking about have been successfully implemented on some of our partners.
All right, so hi everyone. My name is Merritt, and I'm a rising junior at Colgate University. So Tegan just did a great job of walking you all through some of our best practices. But now you might be wondering, do these strategies really work? Will my students really be civically engaged after this? And I'm here to show you and tell you that yes, these strategies do really work. And I will be walking you through some of our TurboVote partner success stories. So I'll basically be showing you specific ways that our college and university partners have successfully gotten students onto TurboVote, thereby boosting civic engagement on campus. So first up, we have Lone Star College. Lone Star College is a community college system in Texas with multiple campuses and over 90,000 students totally fully enrolled, whether that be online or actually on campus. So tabling in areas like this is kind of difficult. My school is super small, so by targeting a dining hall or something of the sort at Colgate is really effective. But at Lone Star College, because there's so many campuses and because some students are just online, it makes it really hard for those on-the-ground bottlenecks, as Tegan talked about. So instead, Lone Star used our new IT integration to place a link to TurboVote on their My Lone Star portal, which is basically an access point for key services like registering and paying for classes, online learning, email, and technology help. So this is obviously a space where a lot of students are on it every single day, whether they be actually students attending the campus or that are taking classes online. So you see this huge picture that says register to vote. It really draws a student's attention, which is awesome. And as a result, Lone Star has been our top performer on our TurboVote sign-up leaderboard. Alone in 2016, Lone Star has had over 1,600 sign-ups on TurboVote. So that's really, really great. And so up next, we have Kutztown University. And so Kutztown also integrated TurboVote on its learning management system, which is another student site that attracts a lot of student users. So this interface I'm actually pretty familiar with. It looks a lot like the learning management that I'm used to. So basically I use a site like this to log on and see my courses, to look at my syllabi, check course readings, etc. So I'm on it every single day, multiple times a day. So it gets a lot of student traffic, and seeing this Kutztown students vote is really exciting and draws a lot of attention because let's say I go to Kutztown, I see that, and I think I'm a student at Kutztown, I should get registered, get informed, and vote. So that's really awesome, and it's been really, really successful in getting students excited and civically engaged. And so yeah, it's been awesome. So up next, a little bit different from the previous two, we have the Harvard IOP. So this fall, Harvard Institute of Politics is launching a new program that will integrate voter engagement into mandatory new student check-in. So it's an effort to standardize campus voter registration for students. So students will be guided through the voter registration process, as well as have the opportunity to opt for notifications about upcoming elections and request an absentee ballot, even if they have already registered to vote. So as Tegan mentioned, orientation and new student check-in is the perfect time to target students, as most have recently turned 18 and have not yet registered to vote. And even if they have, they're coming onto a college campus that might be in a state that's not where they're from. So that can be really confusing, but with this partnership with TurboVote, we can guide students through that process, making sure that they're still civically engaged and excited to get into the election year. So just for some key takeaways up next. As you've seen, the voting process is really complicated and differs a lot from state to state. Unfortunately, there's no universal online voter registration platform, and state-specific laws add a lot of complexity, and primary, local, and runoff elections have very low voter turnout. So giving students information about how, when, and where to vote is really key to increasing democratic participation amongst such a key demographic. So as we've seen with our success stories, Harvard IOP integrated TurboVote into their new student check-in. Lone Star College and Kutztown successfully integrated Turbo onto their student portals and learning management systems. And just a little side note, that can be as easy as just emailing the IT person at Kutztown. They emailed the IT manager with an email saying all-knowing and all-powerful. So if you can just get the IT person excited and interested in it too, it is super easy. Send out an email and they can get it right on their student portal. So just so you know, we have a toolkit that is available for our college partners that includes a lot of these best practices and success stories. And we also have a team that is fully ready to assist you and answer any questions that you might have. So if your campus is at all interested in partnering with TurboVote, especially with this exciting election year, we would love to have a conversation with you. So feel free to reach out to us at partnerships@turbovote.org, and we will definitely keep in contact with you. So up next, I'm going to be handing things off to my colleague, Kevin, and he will be manning the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Mary. Does anyone have any questions so far? I know we've thrown a lot of information at you all, but we would like to hear some of your thoughts as well on this webinar. You can type them in the chat box if you would like.
Hi, everyone. Just wanted to jump in. My name is Emily, and I'm a part of the partnerships team, and I focus solely on TurboVote implementation. So some of that information that Tegan and Merritt were covering. So again, the implementation team being a major resource for our college partners, and something we enjoy doing to help you all think where TurboVote can plug in most effectively to your campus plans. I did want to touch on, as far as the technology itself, I wanted to mention one of the unique features of the tool as it relates to our administrators and TurboVote implementers. On the back end piece of the site that will soon be available in our TurboVote 2.0 platform, implementers like yourself will have access to the sign-up data for those that came through the site. And I know folks find that really valuable in order to more effectively measure impact of their engagement programs on campus. So by seeing how many folks come through TurboVote, you can capture their name and contact information, what services they selected from TurboVote, and then down the line can, of course, match that to the voter file and be able to see how many of those folks successfully completed the registration process, and then how many turned out to the polls, of course, the most important piece. So I wanted to flag that data usage that is available to our partners. And if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to go into more detail. But in addition to the great user improvements that Berkeley touched on, I did want to flag that as well.
Thanks for your question, Miss Austin. I'm just going to read it out loud. Do you need a TurboVote club on campus in order to integrate this, or is it intimately run by student organizations or governments? As of right now, I'll pass this on to Emily.
There you go. I indicated to Kevin I could take that off his hands. That's a great question, and it does vary from campus to campus. In the case of Tegan, who spoke earlier, she's the president of her student government, and that falls under her responsibilities. So often student government is a place where TurboVote kind of can live. In other cases where, like at Harvard, for example, they have an Institute of Politics, or a university might have a civic engagement center, something that obviously is a nice fit for TurboVote's work, then it can more directly live under a faculty member, and then kind of have students doing the on-the-ground work and helping promote the tool amongst the student body. So it can look a lot of different ways. And the other one I'll mention as well, political science professors who have a particular interest in student engagement. My team, my colleague Andrew and I, and others will work directly with those professors and help them, again, come up with ways to promote the tool. So it can look a lot of different ways.
And hey, this is Andrew. Emily just mentioned me, so I'll jump in as well. I do our campus outreach for all of our college partners, and I'll also just add on that we also typically do tend to work with folks in student life or student affairs on the administration, who are doing direct work with students either through the SGA or other student groups on campus that are interested in pushing something like TurboVote out.
Hey, thanks.
Oh, I was going to say here, I just wanted to reiterate we're really pleased to have our student associates here with us this summer. So I was going to give a final call perhaps for any kind of student-related questions that they can provide us their wisdom as far as what's most useful to engage students who are, of course, their age. So any questions for these students in particular about their experience with TurboVote or anything like that? Unique opportunity here for those taking classes and seeing this on their campus.
If there are no more questions or comments, thank you all so much for joining us today. We loved having you all, and we look forward to working with you all again. Oh, one more question. Thanks, Greg. Is there any research on how colleges who are not using TurboVote encourage their students to vote? Like how are students voting? Great question.
That's a great question. How colleges who are not using TurboVote. So I've heard some different things. I know campuses who maybe come to us with interest for the tool. Of course, I've seen really neat ways that people have made paper registration successful. For example, I spoke with someone at, I believe it was Northwestern University, who has a great system out of their student life office where when students come and get their photo taken for their student ID, before they leave that office, they help them complete a voter registration application, and then the office handles the mailing part and gets that form mailed off to the proper election authority. So it's a kind of like we talked about, a really key bottleneck where students are getting that photo taken and they loop them right into the paper registration process and send off the forms on their own so that the student doesn't have to worry about that piece. And it's amazing the impact that can make because, of course, you're touching just about every student who arrives at orientation. And I will say what then spurs conversations with TurboVote is the inability to measure impact very easily. So it's alluring to think, okay, if we can have those TurboVote signups and then we can match to the voter file a little more easily, then we can measure impact more effectively. So that's one example, a particular school that came to mind. And of course, I think tabling events on National Voter Registration Day are tried and true and involve the students in the voter registration process in a way that's really encouraging and allows them to get in front of their fellow students and provide some voter education. But the unique element about things like this, about TurboVote, for example, is placing it in those digital platforms a little more seamlessly.
I also saw a question there. This is Andrew. Do you have to pay for TurboVote? Yes, there is a cost associated with becoming a TurboVote partner. It depends on a few factors, including the size of your student population, so that we're accurately able to cover the cost of all the associated mailings that you saw that students can request if they're unable to register online or would like to request an absentee ballot by mail. So we want to be able to make sure we can cover the cost of those. And so we price it based on that factor, and it runs from anywhere between $1,000 and $5,000 per academic year. And it really mainly just depends on the size of your institution. And I'm happy to get in touch with anybody who would be interested in learning more about the potential of partnering, we have about 160 college partners now, and are excited to be adding on many more new partners during this exciting election year.
I see a wonderful question about implementing your voter turnout in your student government elections. And we have, luckily, one of my colleagues here is a Student Government Association president, so she can speak firsthand on that.
Great, yeah. So, like I said before, I'm Tegan. I'm from St. Hall, and I'm actually the Student Government Association president there. So, on our campus, since SGA really kind of adopted TurboVote and took it in as its own initiative, people kind of see it as like a one and the same. So this year we did a simultaneous campaign with our SGA elections and like a TurboVote promotion campaign. So it was like vote in SGA elections, then get prepared to vote in our upcoming like presidential elections for real. And I would say it was successful. We had the highest voter turnout in Seton Hall history, and I ran uncontested, so I ran against myself. So there was no incentive for people to vote in our student government elections because I already had the election won, and people still voted higher than in all of Seton Hall history. So I really think TurboVote helped get them amped up about not just the SGA elections, but hopefully they'll be amped up in November too.
I also see a question here. How do you compare to online voting platforms that you do not have to pay for? And I am going to toss that to my colleague, Andrew.
Great. So I get this question, of course, all the time when I'm on the phone with a school that's interested in becoming a TurboVote partner, and they're thinking about whether the cost of the service is worth it. There are several kind of other free tools out there on the internet that do provide similar kind of basic helping you with the registration process or with voting absentee. But where you get a little bit of added value and why colleges choose to partner with TurboVote, I think is for kind of three basic reasons. The first is that we're really familiar with working with these populations, and so we've come up with features to really be able to serve college students. Like we had mentioned before, we'll mail you your forms in the mail if you need that, and the cost of that is covered under a TurboVote partnership. And then we've got some other neat features on the back end, like the ability to get dorm address information up on a site or create referral codes so that you can track specific voter registration tactics on campus and be a little bit more smart and assessment-based when you're doing a voter registration drive on campus. The second, of course, is being able to have data on the back end. When you're using pretty much any other online voting platform out there, or if you're just simply directing your students to a link that is linking to a state's online voter registration platform, they're not going to have any data on the back end after you conduct a voter registration drive, and you won't really know how effective all the communications that you were putting out there were with regards to actually getting students registered to vote. And kind of the third, I think, and most important reason people are interested in using TurboVote is really just how we guide folks through the processes of registration and absentee voting and actually going out and voting with the reminders that we send out to folks both 30 days and 1 day before an election. The whole technology is really just designed to make the process of voting and registering and going out and casting a ballot or voting by mail a lot more understandable. When a lot of the times when students are engaging with voting for the first time, and the research shows when you ask after the census a reason why anybody age 18 to 24 didn't vote, a lot of it is not apathy, but rather a lack of understanding of the process of registering and voting. So TurboVote does have the ability, above and beyond other things out there, to really kind of clarify and make students aware of different elements of the process so that they can successfully navigate it and be a participant in our democracy.
And I see a wonderful question that says, is there a website where we can see your list of college partners? And I'll throw that to our supervisor, Emily.
All right. Yeah, I'm glad to see, too, that we kind of broke the barrier for questions. We got lots coming in. Gregory, great question. I actually am right now looking at a map that we have of all of our partners, but I'm thinking a list might be a perfect summer associate project. So your hosts today can put something like that together. As you know, that's changing, and we're adding folks, especially in this election season. We're happy to have colleges reaching out and things like that. So that's something that we can put in place and update regularly, as I don't think we have that documented in an accessible website at the moment, but to come, and we'll have to let you know.
If we have no further questions or comments, we would like to thank you for coming out today, and we would also like to keep in touch. So please feel free to email us and ask us any questions that you may have later on. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, here. It appears some have come in. We will not leave then. I gotta thank you, but then Justin, if you're still with us, we caught that, and we will stay tuned here in case anybody is inspired to ask another question. But how can we use this particular election to intrigue students into becoming civically engaged by voting? That's a great question, and I know our offices, of course, as I kind of alluded to, are benefiting from the hype around this particular election and the heightened level of engagement among students, just because it is so prevalent. But we were really born out of the idea and kind of fight for the local elections, and the idea that those are sometimes the hardest to keep track of. And in order to breed in an election year like this, students who will come out and vote, we want to make sure that in years like 2017 and 2018, the same thing happens. I'm not sure if our associates have anything they want to chime in there. I would just imagine making sure students get registered for this particular election would be key, and obviously kind of introducing them to the registration process during an election where they're so keen on voting. Then if they're registered, the hard part is kind of out of the way. So I would imagine we can benefit from getting lots of registrations taken care of during this particular election. So then that logistical barrier is now removed. And for example, with the use of TurboVote, then you get those text and email reminders even about your local elections. If the associates have anything else they want to chime in just kind of about student involvement in this election and kind of what you all have been seeing and what you think this might translate into down the road.
I'll jump in on that, I guess. Hi, I'm Merritt. I actually am involved in a couple clubs on campus that are really, I guess, dedicated to getting students involved with voting. I'm on Democracy Matters, which we talk about the presence of money in politics, and I'm also on a campaign for Hillary. So obviously with this election year, it's really exciting. I think a lot of students feel passionate either way. And I think that's a great way that I've just seen on my campus, us honing in on voter registration. So through my Democracy Matters, we use TurboVote to register students. And so obviously we're registering them with them thinking, oh, the 2016 election, this is going to be a really huge election. It's like, it's just like an exciting time. But the beauty of TurboVote that I've seen is that, as Emily's mentioned, we still get notifications about upcoming elections, like even local and like state board elections even, which is really interesting and exciting. So students are still going to be civically engaged. I know that without TurboVote, I probably would not have voted in the primary, which is, kind of weird to think. But I think a lot of students, if they hadn't known about the primary, they wouldn't have voted. And a lot of my friends through TurboVote were registered and did vote in the primary. So that's just a really exciting thing that I've seen on my end. And I think that going forward, even after the primary and after the primaries and after the general election, I think that with TurboVote and being involved, me being involved with clubs on campus, I think that we'll continue to have students be civically engaged, knowing when elections are coming up through those texts and email reminders, and yeah, just genuinely being interested and passionate about politics. And yeah, so I think that's what I have to say about that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Merritt. Yeah, I took the time then to kind of think on it a little further too. I think obviously, I know you mentioned the candidates of this particular election. I think there's a narrative for, just the power of one's vote. I think that's what you hear most often with young people, unfortunately, thinking their vote doesn't have impact. But it truly does, and especially as you get down to the local and the state elections, and of course electing people to Congress and things like that. I think this particular election and even just all the excitement around that is a narrative for your vote matters, and the importance of the youth voting bloc and the great influence they can have. Thanks, Justin. We appreciate your feedback. And yeah, again, we'll stay put. I know we've a lot of folks have signed off here, but we'll stay put in case any other questions come through. And again, thank you guys so much.